This week we're talking about Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea, the new DLC that was released this week. You didn't get to play it yet again?
I didn't play it. I'm broke.
Is that what you're saying?
Do over
Yeah.
I don't have any money.
You didn't get time for that.
I don't have time for these games. I don't have any money.
All right, so now, anyways, Bioshock Infinite was actually the first game we reviewed on this show when we started back in April or May, whenever it was. And we were a few months late at the time, but we all gave it super high scores. Bioshock Infinite was awesome. It was one of the best games released this year. And they finally released the DLC. So why don't we take a look at the footage, and we'll tell you what we thought about it. So here we go. I'll kick things off by saying, I'll say Mass Effect 2, Lair of the Shadow Broker is the benchmark for how I measure other DLCs, because that DLC. Okay, I hear you saying shit back there. Did you even play Lair of the Shadow Broker? I thought you did, right?
I probably did. I don't remember.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay.
Part of that was because
if you played Mass Effect 2, like, you were pretty invested in that anyways, and like Liara came back and there was other stuff that
Lair of the Shadow Broker was so awesome. It should have been just in the game originally.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
In the series there?
Fair enough, but that's all I'm saying is that Lair of the Shadow Broker is probably the best DLC I've ever played at this point. That was everything. I mean, for what you got with that was good value. It was an awesome addition to the game. That's how everybody should try to make their DLC, something similar to that. So with that in mind, let's just run down here in case you don't know about the DLC. You play as Booker again. Elizabeth shows up right off the bat, as you can see here, but except now you're in Rapture, which of course is the underwater city from the original Bioshock. The environments look a lot different because it's set right before Rapture collapsed and not like it was in the first game or after everything had already gone to hell. In the first part of this, they have you go through a shopping district before they move you on to the combat areas, and that was cool. There's stuff to do, as you can see here. You can talk to some of the NPCs. You can eavesdrop on them, and there's a bunch of it's all fleshed out up to this point. There's conversations that you don't just walk up to them and they do nothing like they kind of do in Bioshock Infinite. Then later on you meet Sander Cohen from the first game, and you have an appropriately disturbing exchange with him, and then he sends you off to the next part of the game. So, as you can see here, the combat mostly the same. Booker starts off with the hand cannon, so I jumped in. I was instantly headshotting guys and taking them out with a couple hits. You fight splicers again because you're in Rapture, but they aren't as crazy as they were in the first Bioshock because they're just sort of spliced up. They haven't completely degraded
into mutants or whatever.
They're fully spliced up state, and they also just kind of move around. They don't do crazy stuff like climb the ceiling like they do in the other game.
Right.
And so. They actually did. You can see here they worked in it good. It's not the skyhook anymore. It's like it's a Fontaine pneumatic type of thing, but it operates exactly the same way. It just has a different name. So they got that in here now too.
Yeah, I was curious if it was going to feature the skyhook or something equivalent to that.
It's definitely there. Let's see. There's a new plasmid called Old Man Winter. It lets you freeze the enemies.
That's not new. That was in the original.
Was it? Are you sure? I don't think it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Xander knows what he's talking about.
I don't know. I checked it earlier because I suspected it was, and from the thing I read that said it was new for this. So I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. Maybe it was.
Well, you didn't play the original.
I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, you don't even play video games.
Did they have it the way they work it in this is that you can use it on the enemies obviously, but
you freeze them and you hit them with a wrench and then they break.
All right. Well, maybe it was called something else.
I don't think it was. I think it was the same thing.
All right. I'm not 100% sure. You could be right. The way they work it in here though is that there's spots where the pipes are burst and they're just gushing water, and you have to freeze the water in order to get to the next area of the game. So I definitely don't remember that from the first one. Maybe you're right. Maybe they did have some kind of freezing action going on with one of the plasmids in the other game, but whatever.
Yeah, you didn't even play the first one. You didn't even know what you're saying.
I did. It was years ago though, and I remember if you remember.
It wasn't that long ago.
If you remember from our Bioshock Infinite review, I didn't really like the first game.
What?
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
Anyways, I'm just gonna run down the points here. The way there's a boss fight at the end. The way they did that was really cool, but they do give you there's a way you can get a serious advantage. I'm not gonna spoil too much of it here. They give you a way to have a serious advantage at the end, so it's kind of like, all right, whatever. It was a little bit easier, and aside from that, this DLC is a few hours long. People have been criticizing it for that. It's saying it's a little short, but the fact that it's on the short side isn't really an issue. There's enough side stuff you can do, and you don't have to just do the main thing. There's like different stores you can go to. There's stuff off the beaten path that can add to the playtime, and there's power-ups and there's other stuff to find. So it's not really.
So what does this clock in at? What's the grand total here?
Well, okay,
for
yeah,
extra
that's a
time?
good question. I played it on hard, so it took a little bit more effort to get through the enemies, but I spent at least 3 hours with it. It was probably more than that. So I think
it's pretty short.
It is on average. It's probably 2.5, 3 hours tops, and that's including all the additional stuff because I did go around and poke around in all the side areas too. So that was the point I was trying to make, though. I'm going to say even with that, though, and then, yeah, the ending is insane. They kind of work the angle where, if you played Bioshock Infinite, they're working the angle of, Booker's multiple identities, right? So there's some of us still here that haven't played the whole thing, but it plays heavily on that, and they work in a plot device based on that.
So is this the same Booker from Infinite, or they're saying that it's like a multiple personas type thing?
I could give you the answer, but that would mess it up for you. So
great, I gotta play this thing.
It is the same Elizabeth, though. I can tell you that.
Spoiler.
Or maybe it's not. This Elizabeth is definitely from and there's the ending opens up a whole bunch of other questions as well with they do some stuff with cutscenes and they do lay it all out right at the end, but there's still other things in there that do cause confusion. So
this is only part 1 of 2.
Yeah. That's another good point. So this is going to be this is the first one you play as Booker, and then the next one you're going to play as Elizabeth, which makes sense considering what happens at the end of this. It's really crazy. So to sum up, though, like I said, I played on hard. I poked around all the side areas. I would say it's worth the $15. And they asked Ken about this too, and they said, well, they didn't say it in so many words, but they asked him to defend the game's length, and he said we were going for quality over quantity, which makes sense for this type of thing, and I agree with that. I say I'm going to say it's worth the $15.
It's $5 an hour. That's not too bad.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and if you
considering people sink $60 into a game and you're getting a 4-hour campaign, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, so if you factor in that there's two parts, it's going to be $30 for both. You get 6 or 7 hours out of it. That's not that bad.
Yeah. So why don't we put up the scorecard here, and I'll close with these last couple thoughts. Is if you like Bioshock Infinite, you're invested with the world. You're definitely going to like this DLC. So that's why if you're the Bioshock fan, it's a buy. They really executed everything well. They combined elements from their 2 games. There was a Bioshock 2 was done by it's 2K, but it was a different studio. It was Irrational's 2 Bioshock games, the original Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite. So they combined stuff from those 2. They linked everything together, and I think it works pretty well. And again, we mentioned that there's a second part coming. Maybe you got the season pass, so you're probably all set for that. But I'm super interested to see where they take it in part 2, and that's pretty much it. So, as I said, if you're the Bioshock fan, you got to buy it. But if not, you can probably get away with the pass on this.